Begin this half hour, though, with the battle for Mosul. Iraqi counterterrorism troops are now less than a mile away from the city. Iraqi Prime Minister even going as far as saying that they will cut the head off the snake to liberate those trapped inside Mosul. I want to bring in retired four-star general and Fox News military analyst, General Jack Keane. General, good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Maria.
Can you characterize things for us? What are your thoughts on the latest advancements in Mosul today?
Well, we're right on the cusp of the actual assault beginning for the inner city of Mosul with the counterterrorism force, which is actually ISIS's best unit. They led the attack in the Fallujah and in the Ramadi, both successful operations. These folks are trained by our special operations forces, and they are by far their most credible and most experienced force. As you indicated, they're less than a mile from the eastern side of the city. Meanwhile, the 9th Division is moving to the southeastern part of the city, and the 16th Iraqi division is moving to the northern part of the city. And also, as you have reported, the Shia militia, some of them trained by the Iranians, some of them clearly enemies of the United States, are moving to a western city called Tal Afar, which is about 45 miles west of Mosul, to cut off the supply lines. There are no plans for them to enter the city because they usually get involved in revenge killings of Sunnis. So setting that table, we're here. The attack will begin within days. How long this will take, we don't know, because it depends on the ISIS resistance. But this is the toughest form of warfare. It has not changed since World War II. This is about going block by block, building by building, and eventually room by room to clear out an enemy. And ISIS, of course, will use as many human shields as they can to protect themselves.
And one of those human shields are children. Apparently the jihadist militant group now hiding bombs inside of teddy bears and toy trucks. The bombs are intended for children and adults who will walk straight past them. What do you make of this?
Yeah, well, this is horrific, of course. And ISIS has clearly targeted a civilian population right from the time that they arrived in Iraq to compel them to their will. I mean, they're brutal and impulsive in their killing of people wantonly. For example, when it came time for these outer villages, as the Iraqis were approaching them, ISIS forced many of them to leave to go into the inner city. Anybody that hesitated, any families, they just killed the families right on the street, to include the women and children. They left behind some of these teddy bears and toys for some families who were hiding and were not in their grasp, and when they did come out, in their minds, they would further be able to harass and kill these families. These are brutal fanatics, as we all know. They'll stop at nothing to accomplish their goals, to be sure, and that's why they have to be stopped, and that's why they have to be killed or captured.
I want to ask you about the FBI and Russia in a second, but let me stay here for a second, General, and ask you this. Is it a fair fight? I was struck earlier to read that just in Mosul, you're talking about 6,000 or 8,000 ISIS fighters, even as some of them are moving back and forth into Syria. When you characterize the allies, the troops going in, trying to take back Mosul, versus the actual ISIS fighters, is that a fair fight?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Clearly, the Iraqi army, assisted by the Peshmerga Kurds, the Sunni Travel Force, and the Shia militia, clearly have the upper hand. They are a dominating force now. They literally outgun ISIS. They've got this city literally surrounded. Given our very restrictive rules of engagement, we're very careful about not killing civilians, so ISIS hides a lot of their resupply and personal reinforcements in civilian vehicles, and unless we know for sure that that's an ISIS target, we will not shoot at it. They know those rules of engagement as well as we do.
I see.
But that's why we have to have people on the ground. You can't win wars from the air. But believe me, Maria, inside the city, our Apache helicopters pinpointed by troops on the ground, fighter aircraft, and also C-130 gunships will deliver very precise fires to help the ground forces overwhelm ISIS inside the city.
General, let me move on to Russia. FBI Director Jim Comey arguing in private that it is too close to Election Day to name Russia as meddling in the election. Obviously, that's not the way it played out. During the final debate, Hillary Clinton cited findings from intelligence agencies in regards to Russia interfering with the U.S. election. Listen to this, and then I want to get your take on what Comey said.
This has come from the highest levels of the Russian government, clearly from Putin himself, in an effort, as 17 of our intelligence agencies have confirmed, to influence our election. So I actually think the most important question of this evening, Chris, is finally, will Donald Trump admit and condemn that the Russians are doing this?
I had not heard that before. 17 agencies said that, what she said on the debate stage. And then this week we learned that Jim Comey, director of the FBI, says there is absolutely no evidence to support that Russia is interfering in the election and actually behind these WikiLeaks dumps. What do you think?
Well, my take on this is that clearly Russian agents have been involved in all of this, and we know where the sources are coming from. Part of it is part of their, what they call their CIA organization, FSB, and the other is a military intelligence unit. So we have that level of identity. And I think inside the Central Intelligence Agency, because they're not speaking publicly, I believe, who are monitoring all of this, I believe they would flat tell our audience, Maria, that if those two organizations are involved in this, there is no doubt that that permission to do something like that and orders to do it had to come from Putin himself, because this is the United States political process that they are attacking, with the possible repercussions that could come of something like that. So I think he's been far too conservative in his statements about this, and there are other intelligence agencies who are tracking this far more deeply than he is in terms of the sources that clearly know that Putin and senior leadership have got their hands all over this thing.
All right, we will leave it there. General, good to see you. Thank you so much.
Good talking to you, Maria.
General Jack Keane, we appreciate your time this morning, sir. Fox Business.